Hello and welcome again to this week's Southern Circuit. I'm Rickley Stone. 76-year-old John Cromarty is a 7th-generation Miccosukee resident. On tonight's journey, we'll meet him and find out a little bit about how the man and the times have changed in this small Florida town. There's no place like home, and when your home is a sailboat, it can be almost anywhere. But we found a couple who decided to make theirs in Panama City. A little bit of Italy came to Tallahassee last June in the way of Gioconda's Pasta Shop. It's a dream come true for noodle lovers and for Gioconda, who makes the homemade pasta. George Kuselius is a Tallahassean juggling 2 careers, running a natural foods restaurant and giving people the rub with a form of deep muscle massage called soma. We'll find out about his interest in holistic health when we join him on the jobs, tonight on Southern Circuit. 76-year-old John Cromarty is a 7th-generation Miccosukee resident. John's the former manager of Shimoni Plantation and now spends his days doing just what he likes, puttering with his antique buggy collection, building boats, and going fishing. Not a bad way of life for a man who describes himself as just an old, sorry cuss.
In 1824, my grandfather and my great-uncle came to Ammonia Lake. And went to Ellick, settled on the other side of Ammonia Lake, and they got to calling it Cromarty. My grandfather settled on this side of the lake, and they always called it Cromarty. And I'm named after both of them, John Alexander. Well, I was born in 1907, July 18th. I was the first son of Thomas H. Cromarty and Fanny Bell Manning. And she came from on Ammonia Lake. And then there was 4 more boys and 2 girls after me. And I farmed and raised cattle, and I run a plantation for Mr. Dave Ingalls for about 30 years, 35 years, Shimoni Plantation. Well, I saw the horse and buggy go, and the mule and wagon, and mule plowing go, and the automobiles come, and the tractor come, and the radio, and running water, electric lights out in this area, you know. And I'd been to Thomasville and Tallahassee many times in a buggy and a wagon. Have a pair of good mules, a good horse and buggy you could get in Tallahassee in an hour from him by going through the woods and, you know, take the buggy roads and things like that. Like I said, the folks been up here ever since 1824. I fell out to a lot of stuff. My people, see, we had buggies and wagons, and after we got automobiles, most of the people sold their fancy carriages and wagons and stuff like that and got cars. Well, I started picking up and saving and restoring and rebuilding. Well, those two-seated spring wagons, they could be pulled with 1 horse or 2 horses, but most of them are used to go to town in and buy groceries in, all the little corn and stuff in, go to the doctor, go to church, and things like that. And they are called, well, they're light spring wagons, but some of them are called Democrats. People don't know about wagons and things now. Like, you know, that was just ordinary sense when I come along about how to hitch you up and what kind of harness to use. But I guess that's one reason to build a wagon. Mostly I build boats for the lake. But I just build one every now and then. Just to keep my hand in where I won't forget. These boys come down here and won't want to build 2 weeks for duck season. I won't build it if it don't bring it along this time of the year. I don't wait for no more. When hunting season over, I don't wait for nobody else. Don't want to wait for nobody else much, no way. And I'll show you a built one that can be used when you go down towards the barn. I think the first one I built for myself was in 1928. I still got it. But it was a little boat that one man poled in the lake. You couldn't run motors in, you had to pole them with a push pole. So we built them real light. You want me to show you the push pole? You kind of toss a motor, but it'll get you out the lake when your motor breaks down, if you know what to do with it. It's just a push pole, stop pole. If you leave them bright when you peel them, and the lights flashing on the ducks will see them. They're shy from you. You know, everything you want to keep as close to the water and color you can. We even wear camouflage clothes, you know, to shoot in. Camouflage hats and jackets, so the ducks won't go by you too far. And I fish a little and I hunt, and I'm still kind of connected to Shimoni. Miss Dingle paid me a retainer fee, and I go over there every now and then and help John out when he goes off, or see about his men and stuff like that. That's what I want to do, get to go on a dove shoot and duck shoots and things like that. The Lord has been good to me. I've always had a plenty, and I've raised a good family. It's hard to say, except I don't want to leave here except to go to heaven, and I don't want to go off right now on that trip.
Still got some things you want to be doing?
Not especially, but just be here.
Even if you've never considered a maverick's life of travel and self-reliance, surely you've dreamed from time to time of being somewhere else and somebody else. This is a story for the Walter Middies among us.
We were working for a law firm in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I was doing public defender work, and Emily was doing civil work and more technical, fine print kind of lawyering. And I was carrying a pretty heavy caseload, and we had been there almost 2 years, and there was a considerable shakeup in our law firm, political problems amongst the partners, that kind of thing. About the same time, the people I was working with were starting to suffer from the overload from their caseloads, and particularly a guy that I was working directly with basically had a nervous breakdown. And the firm turned to me and said, well, Paul, I guess you're going to have to take over his load as well as your own. And it was about that time that we were looking the situation over and deciding we had enough work, and we had a boat at the time that we used as a great escape on Lake Michigan. We used to go to the boat because that way nobody could reach us on the weekends. And we thought, well, why not take a little bit of time off and sail for a year?
I guess the main thing that we didn't like about being lawyers was not so much being lawyers as working for somebody else.
So we got the boat all together, gave the law firm notice, and took the boat a little ways away from Kalamazoo and spent a few months doing some extra things to it before we left on our trip.
Actually, we thought we'd be leaving about the 4th of July. We ended up leaving Michigan about a week before the ice at the end of October.
And we spent a leisurely time going down the Mississippi River, a little too leisurely for Emily because it was the winter of '76 and it was a little cold in the beginning. In fact, it was freezing. It was just before Thanksgiving. It was pretty cold. We were up in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and we had gone into town for groceries, and we came back to the river, and you climb over a big levee, flood wall, arrangement. And we climbed up to the top of the wall and looked down where the boat was supposed to be, and it was just an empty dock. And this was about 9 o'clock at night, and it was about 30 degrees outside, and we're just standing there going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now, you know? Fortunately, the boat was stolen by two kids who really didn't know what they were doing, and there's enough traffic on the river that the towboat operators on the river spotted them right away because they showed up on the radar. And so when we finally got a hold of the police, and the police got on the radio to the towboat operators by about 11:30 or midnight, we had a pretty good idea where the boat was. So it wasn't quite as harrowing as it might have been. Unfortunately, there was a bend in the river about 4 miles down, and they drifted down. They didn't know how to operate the motor, and they drifted downstream and ran aground. And so by about 2 in the morning, we knew exactly where the boat was. And then it was just a matter of getting another boat to go down and get it. But just that moment when, see, we had sold everything that we owned. We'd moved out. We had nothing except what was on that boat and what we had in our pockets at the time, you know. So when you climb over that wall and look down there and the boat isn't there, it's about the same thing you'd feel if you drove home and your house had been erased off of the street or something like that. You know?
The boat that we lived on, a lot of folks would say, no way. And if I were doing it over again, being able to stand up straight is kind of one of those luxuries that are, you know, sort of handy. Most folks who live aboard for a long time end up on about something in the 30-foot range. Oh, you can go bigger, of course, but it gets a lot more expensive. But we were on a 26-footer, and although I know some folks have done it on smaller boats, I think that's sort of a bottom line.
We got down to New Orleans, and we spent some time in New Orleans. Spent about 4 months in New Orleans because we had such a good time there. And spent a little time working and making some extra money. And then we headed off down the coast.
And we stopped here to work just for a little while. And Paul was working at a boatyard, and I was working at a law firm. And there was a ship's store connected with the boatyard, and they were sort of wanting out. And so actually we had just sort of gotten our stash together to make the next hop, which was going to be to the Caribbean. And the guy said, how would you like to take this business over? And we thought about it. And
we were really attracted to the area. It's probably the best sailing area that we'd seen, you know, on the trip. And from a business standpoint, there was hardly anything going on in the sailing business. So we thought it looked like a good place to settle down, so we did. That was 6 years ago. We're
really the only folks in town who have much to do with sailing, and so we do have a very loyal clientele. Of course, we sell marine supplies, and that's not all for sailboats. A lot of stuff is going to be the same whether you have a powerboat or a sailboat. And we do sell a fair amount of stuff to shrimp boats and commercial fishermen, too. But then, of course, we also sell sailboats. And then we do a fair amount of working on boats, too, installing equipment and that sort of thing.
The big things in sailing, I find, there's the aesthetic part. You know, there's the beauty of sailing. There's the relaxation, the calmness, the quiet, that sort of thing. And the other side of sailing, when you get into cruising and more offshore type cruising, there's this sort of self-reliant aspect of the thing.
Actually, the sailing that we, I guess, enjoy the most is offshore sailing, really getting out and going somewhere. A couple weeks ago, we sneaked out for 10 days and sailed down to Marco Island and back. And it's the sort of thing, there's no other vacation where you are so completely in another world.
Rounding Cape Horn is like climbing Mount Everest. But in terms of big sailing trips, that's one. Although equally, in terms of just pure enjoyment, just spending a year in the Caribbean would be good. I mean, that's where we were headed when we first started this whole enterprise, and I like to think that we're still going to end up there at some point.
When Joconda's Pasta Shop opened its doors on Thomasville Road last June, Tallahasseans were introduced to a new world of noodles, and to Joconda, an old world woman with contemporary dreams.
He says, finalmente, finally, your dream is reality. My love, you deserve it. In bocca al lupo. I will always be next to you with all my love, Giotto. I worked for 10 years to have money to do this, that we wanted to do it 13 years ago when we came here, and we couldn't do it because of money. We didn't have the money to do it. But who pushed me to do this is my two daughters. Because my cooking, they reckon my cooking is good. Whatever I do is great. And when they were teenagers, the house was full of boyfriends, and everybody was eating lasagna, this and that. So they say, Mommy, do something on your own. You will make some money. And I did it. But they pushed me. Oh, if they pushed me. Because they know I don't like to work for other people.
12, 13, 14, 15, and 20.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope y'all enjoy it.
I'm glad you came back.
All right.
I am so, you made me really happy today, you know? Honestly. Have a nice day. Thank you.
All right, you too.
When you feel like, come again.
Okay.
See, that girl, she walked in yesterday, and she didn't know what I was selling, really. And she looked at the pasta, she says, Lady, I'm going to tell you something. I work at Skag, and I tried some imported pasta, and they were bad. Say, okay, try this one today, and see what happened. She came back. That's good. That pleased me a lot, more than money, because she likes it, and she was looking at me strange, you know, like, well, I'll try it, but I don't know if I like it. She came back, wonderful, I like that. Pasta, what is it? Flowers and eggs, that's all. Then you add vegetables, then you have the color, plus the benefit of the vegetable. The basic on any pasta is to boil it and cook. Let it cool off and use your imagination. Right? Put the color together. It's nourishment, it's food. It's, the Roman, they used to have pasta all in the back then, you know. It can be used as a dish, a salad. You can do anything you want with pasta. It's not necessarily cook it and put sauce, no. You can cook it, let it cool off, and add some shrimp, you have a salad. You can make chocolate pasta. And I didn't do it yet because I think it's too far out for people here. But if I make chocolate pasta, what you will do with chocolate pasta? Very simple. You boil it like you do with the normal one, and then you add your nuts, icing sugar, or whatever kind, honey, and you have a beautiful dessert. I didn't cook when I was young. I didn't want to cook. My mother used to say, the poor man you marry is going to be a poor man. I said, don't worry. I learned. We went to Africa. There was a family from Bologna, and they were making all this fancy pasta. Never saw anything like that. You know, when you're young, you don't. And I learned from them. I love Italy, but I don't miss it that much. No. Africa left something on me, more than Italy. I left, I was so young. I was 21, I'm 49 now. I think it's nice, it's cute what I'm doing. It's neat, it's clean, it's real things. I don't give people artificial flavor. A friend of mine that she has a restaurant, I'm not naming it now. She came yesterday. She's my best friend, and she saw my ragu. You know what she said to me? You give people too much meat. I show you. Here. In here, see that? And she says, you do give too much meat. And she tasted, she said, in yours, it's very good. I know, I said, it's better than yours. But everything is so, I call it almost pure, you know, because there isn't no artificial, nothing, no coloring. a lot of work, care in his own cooking, how you do it, the color must be right, carrots must be right. This sort of things makes it very hard, but very pleasant when they buy it. I would love to have people coming in and out. We just talk, because I love people. Somebody up there wants to make these things work, honestly. And it will. It takes time for everything, right? When you started off as you kind of, how you say in Italian, we say grezzo. You kind of unpolished, then you get polished. Then you learn where you're making mistakes. Am I right? Then you learn to do better. And nice would be to have my dream come true. You know, to succeed on something that seems impossible, I'd be very happy. I don't give up that easy.
It's hard work to change your body and to stay healthy. George Kuselios has made bodywork his business. He has opened another taproot juice bar at Westwood Fitness Center and soon will offer Soma Bodywork, a very intense form of massage designed to keep you healthy.
This will help take some of the pressure off the lower back. I got involved with the Soma work through the restaurant. There was somebody that came to the restaurant years ago who did the Rolfing work and wanted to use our restaurant as a place to give a lecture. And in hearing about the work there at the restaurant, in feeling the work after I got involved with him and having him do the work on me, I felt that this work was as much a part of people being healthy as their diet. So the fact that I have a natural food restaurant and do the body work, to me seems like it fits together just right. They both aim towards people experiencing and being more aware of the natural health that we all need to have. The Taproot is a natural foods juice bar and restaurant that started 7.5 years ago in a very small store on West Tennessee Street next to FSU. In the beginning, we had no experience whatsoever in how to run a restaurant, how to operate one. So I think that we have been successful more by luck and more because we put all of our energies into making the food as tasteful and as healthy as we could. The day starts off very early, getting all of the needs of the different taproots in order. Whether that means shopping, whether it means taking food from the host, from the warehouse to the mall, whether it means improving any of our sites or having to build the spa, all of that's taken care of in the morning. Between noon and 2 is my only stable hours of the day. That's when I'm at the Governor's Square store helping serve lunch. The afternoons are spent partly in relaxation. I normally take an hour off every day to a nap or to meditate or to do yoga. And then I come to my office in the afternoons and do the body work from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 7 or 8 at night. Okay, Pat, take a nice full breath. And breathe out. That's good. We're going to be working right on the inside of your scapula here. You might feel the muscles jump a couple times or contract and then release. Soma is an expansion of the work of Ida Rolf. It was developed by Dr. Bill Williams, who was one of the first students of Ida Rolf. He was a clinical psychologist who had heard about this wonderful woman in Esalen who was doing this marvelous work on bodies. He went out, met her, and became a student in the first class that she taught. This was in the early 1960s, some 20 years ago. He then became her top student and lived and worked with her for 5 years, basically learning how to teach other people. His working knowledge brought him to the East Coast. He was the first Rolfer on the East Coast. And one of the early lessons that he learned was that Rolfing, or the kind of work that he had learned from Ida Rolf, did not work for everybody. So he started to change his technique to fit the age and the structure and the physical experiences that each person had. In doing that, he learned that at many times he must be much softer with certain people. So he developed what became known as soft rolfing, later became known as soma, neuromuscular integration. And then he decided that he needed to teach his own work and started his institute in Gainesville. At the same time that he started his institute, I was looking to become a student of Ida Rolf, and it was that year that she died, and I was led to Dr. Williams by the Rolfer that had worked on me. The work is centered around working with fascia, and myofascia or fascia is the connective skin that wraps the muscles and wraps the fibers of the muscles. It's almost like the envelope of the muscle. And sometimes the muscle is in very healthy shape, but its envelope might be too tight. Perhaps one envelope has adhered itself or gotten stuck to an envelope next to it. So two muscles, rather than working free of each other, sliding over each other, have gotten stuck. And when we want to reach out our arm, it doesn't straighten out to reach out all the way. So the heat and the pressure that we use seems to loosen these adhered or stuck parts of the body. It seems to stimulate circulation and the flow of blood into these areas, cleans the area out of any toxicity because you have an exchange of oxygen whenever the blood circulation is increased. And it seems to add more flexibility to that whole area. In adding physical flexibility, we feel that we're also adding psychological flexibility. People are able to handle stressful situations in a much more effortless way. The key word psychologically that we're looking for by the end of the 10 sessions is more self-reliance. People feeling that they have more control, more awareness about not only themselves and how they physically feel, but how they relate psychologically to the world. The relationship that develops between the client and myself is something that I have never experienced elsewhere. I was in clinical psychology before I was in this work, so I've always worked with people, always had a lot of empathy for people, always wanted to understand what made them tick. But I've never felt as close to people as when I'm working with them. But if we do this finger too, does that feel good?
That's Southern Circuit for this week. Thanks for being with us. Join us again next week when Southern Circuit returns here to the Trout Pond, a recreational area for handicapped people. And we'll meet a woman whose babies are African violets. Until then, from all of us, good night. Does it look queer, me looking away? Oh, okay.